Okay, we are now recording. So coming back. So again, all the nations of the world have to answer these questions, and different nations respond to this based on the resources that they have. Some nations have an abundance of resources, some nations have no resources, right? The way they answer the question also depends on their type of government. For example, in some nations, the government attempts to answer the questions of what are we going to make, how are we going to make it, and for whom we're going to make it. The government tries to control the economy. The best example of countries like this will be Venezuela, and North Korea, right? But as you can see, by looking at their history and their success, we know that those countries are actually failing. They are not good. They are not doing absolutely nothing good. So then a centrally planned economy is a failure. It's a failure, right? So most nations are beginning to actually allow the market to answer the questions, or a combination of both. For example, if we're talking about China, China used to be a communist nation, a central planned economy. I mean, where the government tells people what to do. Now they're beginning to go into a transition. It's called an HPO, which is a historically planned economy. Let's say, it's now called an HPE, a historically planned economy. In the past, the government used to tell them what to do. So now they're going into a transition. The government is still very involved, but it's no longer a communist nation 100%. It's now an HPE, a historically planned economy. So again, and that's why China has had a lot of success lately, because they have allowed now some type of freedom. Okay. As a matter of fact, when the Chinese government decided to go into give some freedom to people, the Chinese economy exploded. In the last 15 years, they have actually experienced an economic growth of an average of 10%, growing by 10%. So again, it has expanded. So now let's continue with the United States. In the United States is the largest producer of goods and services in the world, right? How much do we produce? I believe I already told you that we produce 25% of the world output. At the same time, we are the largest consumer of goods in the world. We buy more than any other country. We import more than any other country. What is the thing that we do in the United States? Well, we do almost everything you can imagine, but we now specialize in those things that we can do much better than everybody else, which simply means we have the lowest opportunity cost. You remember how do we measure opportunity cost from last class? Lost over gain. And this is what I'm trying to tell you. Look, for example, we make automobiles. We make computers, we make planes, we make machinery. We grow corn and rice and wheat. Do you know any place in the United States in which we grow pineapples? Do you know any place in the United States in which we grow bananas? And the answer is no, we don't. I mean, the state of Hawaii have a small production of bananas and a small production of coffee and a small production of pineapples, but is insignificant. We don't produce that. Now, why not? Can we do that? Think about the state of Florida, one of the largest producers of oranges and lemons and limes, citrus production in Florida. Can we produce bananas in Florida? Of course we can. Can we grow pineapples in Florida? Maybe we can. Why we don't do it? Because the opportunity cost is very high. In other words, the amount of money that we're going to get by selling a couple of bananas or a couple of pineapples do not compare with the amount of money that we can get if we use that land to plant watermelons, for example. So we do the things for which we have the lowest opportunity cost. We can do it. I mean, think about this. Probably you can help me. I mean, probably some of you know, what do we need to grow marijuana in a closet? Can we grow marijuana in a closet? What is the ingredients to grow marijuana inside your house? Come on, you're smart. We need the right soil. What else? Anybody want to say anything?
I'm
We
sorry,
need light. right? We need the seeds. So what I'm trying to tell you is this, guys, if we can grow a drug like this in a house, we can grow anything that we want. But it would be stupid for us to spend thousands of dollars in light to grow these illegal drugs when it will be easier for somebody to go out and just buy it on the street. And that's what we mean. So in the United States, we produce those things for which we have the lowest opportunity cost. And then we buy from other countries that think that they can produce lower than us. For example, 50% of all the vegetables that we consume in the United States, where do they come from? You know, the tomatoes and the lemons and the limes and the avocados, where do they come from? I mean, you know, the commercial avocados from Mexico. Well, it's not only avocados from Mexico, but we also have tomatoes and all the other vegetables and onions. They come from Mexico. Why? Well, because they have a lot of workers, right? It's very labor intensive, and we're going to buy those products that those countries produce. Okay? So then how do we measure how big we are in the United States? The way we measure the size of the United States is by looking at the gross domestic production. And the gross domestic production is the dollar value of everything we produce in a nation. Let me simplify to you what GDP means. Let's assume that we have a very small country, and this country produces 2 cars. That's all they produce, 2 cars. And the price of each car is $10,000 a piece. So then the GDP of that nation is only 20,000. If we have a small tropical country that they only produce, you know, bananas, and they only produce 5 bananas, and the price of each banana is $1, guess what? The GDP of that nation would be $5. So GDP is nothing more than the dollar value of all final goods and services produced inside the borders of that nation. Would you like to guess how big is the GDP of the United States? The gross domestic production in the United States is about 21 something trillion dollars. About $21 trillion. Can somebody do a Google search and tell me what is the actual size today of the US economy? US economy GDP? When I ask you for those things, guys, it's because we are interacting. Okay?
It says 20.54 trillion.
Okay, 2024?
20.54.
Okay, 20.5. Thank you. Yeah, it's about $20.5 trillion, where the value of everything we produce. Okay, do you have an idea how much $1 trillion is? How many millions on $1 trillion? Okay, 1,000 million makes 1 billion. Then 1,000 billions make 1 trillion. Look, let me tell you how much $1 trillion is. Let's assume, and let's assume that I ask Cliff to be the manager of my company. And Cliff decides to hire Zach to be his assistant. So now we have Cliff and Zach managing my business. These guys are the dumbest guys that you can imagine. And they are losing $1 million a day. And the next day they lost $1 million, and the next day $1 million, and $1 million. By the way, losing $1 million a day is not a big deal. Look at the airline companies. That's how much they are doing now. The American Airlines is losing $1 million a day. So if Zach and Cliff stay in business for 1 year, at the end of the year, they're going to be losing how many millions? Zach, $1 million a day. How much would you lose in a year?
365 million.
Okay, 365 million. In 10 years, how much would that be? $3.5 billion. So how many years do they have to stay in business for them to lose $1 trillion? Any math majors? Let me tell you. I developed a time machine, and I'm so upset with Cliff and Zach that I put them in this time machine with my business. and I transport them back to the day that Jesus Christ was born, 2,000 years ago, they still have to go another 800 years before they can spend $1 trillion. It will take you 2,800 years spending $1 million every single day to spend $1 trillion. So that is telling you how much $1 trillion is. It's a very serious amount of money. So the United States produces $20 trillion worth of output. $20 trillion worth of output. We are the largest economy in the world. We are a superpower. Do you know for how long we have been the largest economy in the world? Okay, we have been the largest economy in the world since 1871. You know, in other words, for almost 100 years, the US economy has become one of the largest economies in the world, and it's growing and growing and growing. At this point, we account for about 25% of all the world output. We are so big that we are almost twice as big as China. And you put all these 7 superpower nations together, Germany, Italy, Canada, England. We put the 7 largest nations together, all of them combined are still smaller than the size of the United States. Germany is about 3 trillion, Italy is about 1.5, England is about 2.5. You know, so some of these European quote unquote superpowers are actually smaller than some of our states in the nation, right? In other words, we have states like Georgia, like New York, like California, like Texas, that their output, their production is larger than some of the nations in Europe. So as you can see, the United States is a superpower, you know, in the amount of production that we make. So now if we divide the amount of what we make by the number of individuals in the nations, we have what is called the per capita GDP. So per capita GDP is, we get the gross domestic production and we divide it by population, okay? So then this gives you an indication of the standard of living. In the United States, the GDP is about $67,000 according to the last numbers that I look. Let me see if I can get that information. I think I have it right here. Okay, so at this point, I believe you're looking at a, there it goes. Okay, this is to give an idea about the GDP per capita of specific nations. As you can see, the United States, at this point, we rank as the 8th, you know, in the world ranking of GDP per capita. In 2019, which was last year, on the average, Americans produced on the average about $65,000 per individual. In other words, if we divide that $20.5 trillion by the 325 million people, on the average, every American in the United States makes about $65,000 worth of products. Now, in 2020, at this point, up to now, the estimates are that it's going to be, well, it was 70,000, but I don't know if that's going to become reality, because in the middle of the year, the forecast is no longer in place. So let's go back to 2019. So on the average, Americans produce about $69,000 worth of products. We rank number 8 in the world, right? But as you can see, it's actually number 7. You know, as you can see, they have other countries that have a larger GDP per capita. But the reality is that this is not true numbers. For example, look at Qatar. Qatar on the average makes about $69,000 worth of products. What does Qatar produces? Nothing. What they sell is oil. They extract oil from the country. So you divide the number of oil they are selling by the number of people. On the average, every people is supposed to get $69,000 per year. But you know that that's not the case, because the oil of Qatar is not going to the people of Qatar. The oil of Qatar is going to the kingdom of Qatar, which is the royal family. So we have poverty in Qatar even when they have a high per capita income. Look at Norway. What does Norway produces? Yeah, fishery industry, and also they are now one of the largest exporters of oil. Okay, so again, this is the average. How about Macau? Anybody know what Macau is? Macau is a province of China. And if you divide the population of that country by the number of people that live in that area, it gives you the impression that in Macau, every Chinese guy living there makes about $81,000 per year. And again, that's a fallacy, because what they produce in Macau, they don't produce absolutely nothing. What they have is the world's largest places to go gamble. Is the Las Vegas of Asia. The biggest casinos in the world, are in Macau. So they count the amount of bets and the amount of money that moves into the country by the number of people, and it gives you the impression that, you know, that's the productivity of that nation. But as you can see, that's not the case, because the casinos in Macau are not only owned by the Chinese government. We have, you know, a lot of American casinos operating in Macau. Okay, so again, I'm just using you to give you an explanation that in economics, every time you look at numbers, take it with a grain of salt. Take it with a grain of salt. Let me give you an example. Look at this number, the United States. On the average, Americans make $65,000 in productivity, which simply means that they make the same amount of income. See, GDP per capita is, on the average, each American individual makes this amount of goods, which means that on the average, each amount of individual makes the same amount of income. So then my question is, how many of you made $65,000 last year? You follow me? According to the GDP per capita, it says that on the average, American people make about $65,000 a year, right? And none of you make that, because averages are just that. Just that. It's just a guide. It's just a point of reference. And you have to learn how to look at those numbers with a grain of salt. Let me give you an example. Let's assume that, I don't know, I go with my cousins and we go out hunting, right? And we are so stupid that we get lost in the woods, right? And now we have 3 days without no food. I mean, we are starving, right? We have been drinking water from the creek. We're following the creek, trying to find civilizations, and we are lost. After 3 days of walking in the wilderness, we come into a small cabin. And it's, oh my God, this civilization. And we start looking around, trying to look through the window, you know, to see what's going on there, right? And, you know, we don't see no people. But then we see a chicken going around the house. And right away we say, oh, thank God, right? So me and my cousin go out and kill the chicken. We put it in boiling water, we pluck it, and then we begin to put it on the fire. Right, my cousin said, hey, I need to go out and I need to go out and pee. So he goes out and pee, you know, to the other side of the building. By the time he comes back, boom, I ate the whole chicken. I mean, he's going to be really pissed off. Get the joke? He's going to be really pissed off. He's going to be really mad. I said, what in the blankety, you did that? And I will tell him, hey, come on, Pedro, come on, calm down. Yeah, that's my cousin's name, Pedro, right? I say, calm down, Pedro. It's not a big deal, because if you really think about it, on the average, me and you ate half a chicken, right? On the average, we ate half a chicken. Well, no, averages means absolutely nothing. And that's the thing that you need to understand, that the US economy is a great economy that has very big numbers that actually tell you that it's very productive, that it tells you that people are actually living very, very good. But in reality, not everybody is actually sharing that standard of living. Okay, so then the per capita GDP is nothing more than GDP divided by the population in that country, right? So if the GDP grows faster than population, then the standard of living increases. So when people are producing more, they have more income, they're going to have more things. Look, how many of you, most of you are living back home. At your house, you have, raise your hand if you have more than 3 TVs at your house. Only one of you? Come on, be honest. Do you only have 3 TVs at your parents' house? 2? Okay. Why do you have 3 TVs or 4 TVs at your house?
1 for each bedroom.
Yeah, 1 for each bedroom. I mean, do you really need that? Okay, hold on. Let me see how many we have. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, yeah, we have 5 TVs in our house. We have 5 TVs. Do we need 5 TVs? And the answer is no. We don't need that. There's only 4 of us. You know, usually when we watch TV, we watch them together as a family. So we don't need 5 TVs. So then the question is, why do we have 5 TVs? Because we live in a nation in which our living standards is very high. And it's not a big deal for people like us to spend $200 on a brand new TV. So we use TVs in the bedroom, just like Laura say, in most cases for decorations, just to have it there, even if we don't use it. Even if we don't use it, my wife, she's over here in my conversation, but yesterday we have been working in the garage, and we have an extra TV. You know, well, we have 2 extra TVs that we don't use because we buy bigger TVs. So now we have 2 small TVs. And she said, why you don't put this in front of the treadmill in the garage? Okay, so I'm going to install the TV in front of the treadmill in the garage. I mean, we know, or I know, it's going to be a waste of time. Why? Well, because we never use the treadmill. You hear me, Jessica? She's not too happy about me saying that, you know. So we have a treadmill in the garage, expensive treadmill that's going to have a big expensive television, but it's still going to be a waste of money because we are not going to use it because we don't have time. Oh, that's the excuse that we create. So again, GDP increases, it increases your standard of living and you will be able to live better. On the other hand, if the GDP decreases, then the standard of living in those nations are going to decrease. And that's exactly what is happening in the African continent. The output, the productivity of the nations is decreasing every year, but the population is growing at a faster rate. So think about this. Now we have fewer apples and more people. So now instead of eating a whole apple, now you're going to only have to eat of a quarter of an apple. And that's more or less an easy example or to illustrate what I'm trying to tell you. Okay. So again, that's GDP. So then GDP is an increase in output, an expansion of the production possibilities. The economy is expanding. In the United States, for the last 100 years, the US has expanded at an average increase of 3% per year, and population has increased at an average rate of 1% per year. So as you can see, this is why our standard of living has increased for the last 100 years. Think about it. On the average, the US economy has expanded by 3% every year, but population has only increased by 1%. So in other words, we are producing more apples and we have fewer people. Or the production of apples is growing faster than the number of people coming into the country. So now we have more apples to eat. So that our standard of living has increased by 2% every year. And because this is cumulative, in other words, for example, last year we increased by 2%. This year we're going to increase by 2% of the original growth plus the 2% of the increase from last year. So every year we continue increasing, and that's why we are the richest nation of the world. We are the richest nations of the world. Okay, again, this slide that you see right here in front of you, this is very outdated. I already gave you the new ones, right? The United States, the GDP is about $63,000 per year. So which simply means that we have increased in less than 7 years. On the average, Americans have increased their income by $7,000, about $1,000 per year, the income on the average. On the other hand, look at countries like Ethiopia. You know, in the countries like Ethiopia, right here. See, as you can see, the country of Ethiopia, on the average, people in Ethiopia make about $470 worth of products, which simply means they make about $470 a year in income. Okay, in the American continent, we have the poorest nations in the American continent, and that's Haiti. You know, Haiti, on the average, they make about $800 a year. You divide that by 12, you know, and how much is that? About $80? About $80, a little bit less than $80. That's how much they make per month on income. So as you can see, this is what's called poverty, absolute poverty. Okay. So now, again, the population on this graph, you can see the population of the United States has increased, you know, by an average of 1%. But look what happened to the output. Okay, which slide are you able to see the U.S. output and population growth in your screen? There it goes.
Yes, sir.
You can see it. Okay. So as you can see, the population of the United States have increased by only about 1%, but look at the output of the United States. So as you can see, the United States gets richer almost every year. We get better and better and better and better. We are the superpower. We are the nation. We are the Roman of the Roman empires. We are the British during the British Empire. We're the Spaniards during the Spanish Empire. In other words, we are a superpower, not only economically speaking, but militarily speaking. Okay, so, and that happened as a result of us being productive. So as you can see, our growth has exceeded our population. And that's why we have bigger houses. And that's why we have multiple cars and multiple TVs. And that's why we can afford to eat, you know, out almost every single day. Right now, for poor nations, the story is different. It's very different, right? So rich nations have growth at a faster rate than GDP. But the poor nations, the population has increased faster than the GDP per capita. And as a result of this, the economy has been stagnated and the standard of living has been decreasing every year. Okay. It is 11, what do you have there? What time do you have? Somebody tell me about the time we have.
11:08.
11:08. Let's go ahead and take a 10-minute break. You can go and feed your cat and we'll come back at 11:18. That sound good to you? Okay, I'm gonna pause. We'll be back in 10 minutes. You are live. Okay, so we are still continuing trying to understand why the US economy is so good, right? And why the US economy has increased dramatically. Okay, now something else that we need to understand is that the mix of the products that we have made in the United States have actually changed dramatically in the last 100 years. Historically, the United States was an agricultural producing nation, which simply means we used to make a lot of agricultural products. But now things have changed. We also produce a lot of manufacturing products and things have changed. Today, 80% of everything we produce is actually on the service industry. Now, 80%. And just to give you an example of what I'm talking about, I'm going to go down the list and ask you some questions, just as a way of participating in the class. For example, Ruth, what do your parents do for a living?
My mom is a house, like she stays at home.
And
my dad.
And your dad?
And my dad is a subcontractor. He has his own business.
Okay, so he produce something? It's like buildings, or what do they do? Clean houses,
he or does siding for apartment complexes.
Okay, so what do you think, guys? Is that service or that's manufacturing or something? Now, for example, if the idea is to help houses, like a carpenter, that's a service industry. Okay, Grace?
Yes.
What are your mom and dad? What do they do?
My mom's a stay-at-home mom, and then my dad owns his own company, and they do like intelligence acquisitioning.
Okay. A service. Melody?
Yeah.
Oh, so my dad is a pastor.
Service.
And my mom. Yeah.
And your mother?
And my mom. I'm sorry?
I'm not able to hear about your mother.
Yeah. My mom is a part-time librarian, part-time stay-at-home mom.
A service. Zach?
My mom's a teacher, and then my dad works for a nonprofit company.
Service. Gita?
My dad's a pilot and my mom's an accountant.
Okay, service, you know? And as you can see, we can stop right here, but you can see that's what we do. We don't have parents that like in the old times in which your grandfather used to work for General Motors producing, refrigerators, or your father working for the Ford auto plant, or your father or your mother, in other words, we don't do that anymore. Most of the US economy, 80% of the US economy is based on services. Hairstylists, plumbers, carpenters, landscapings, accountants, financial advisors, computer information system advisors. I mean, everything we do is service, 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 service. We don't make tractors, we don't make planes, we don't make inwards. We make that with the population involved in the production of that is very limited, because the things that we make like that, they are made by machinery. So our economy is actually not transforming into a service-oriented economy. We have a lot of burger flippers and a lot of delivery guys and a lot of pizza makers and that's what it is in the United States economy. So again, we still one of the largest manufacturers of goods. We still make a lot of products, right? But we have changed into a service-oriented society. Look, to give you an idea, in the 1800s, 90% of everything we produced was agricultural production. In other words, everything we were making was just to survive. We were growing our own potatoes, our own onions and tomatoes and so on. It's a self-sufficient economy. And about 3% of that was mining and manufacturing and construction. And as you can see, the amount of service was insignificant. But look what happened from the 1800s to the 2000s. Look at the agricultural production. It went from 90% of everything we produce was agricultural production to only 1%, right? Look at manufacturing and mining. It increased from 5% to about 19%. But look at service, from almost non-existence, 2%, to 80%. Now, if this is good or this is bad? And the answer is, well, it's neither. It just simply means that our nation has become more affluent, and as a result of that, now we don't do our own services. We let other people cook for us. In other words, we go and get, take out food. Probably your parents, even now, I mean, in our house, like we have been, my wife is working, I'm working, she's literally here 15 feet away from me in the other office, and we stay here all day long. At lunchtime, we grab a little pizza, something here frozen, and we put it in the microwave or in the oven. Then at 5:30, when we are finishing with our job, say, let's go out and get something to eat, right? Why? Well, because it's going to be cheaper for us to buy the food than for us to go buy the food, bring it to the house, and begin to cook it, right? The same thing goes with a lawn yard. I mean, we don't have, I don't go outside and mow the yard. Why? It takes too much time. We prefer to pay somebody else to do it for us. And again, it's just size of affluency. You don't have to be super rich. Now think about you. Probably some of you are at your house now with your parents, right? And when was the last time you went outside and mowed your yard? Never. Why? Because you have my cousin, Pedro and Luis, mowing your yard. You have a Mexican crew that come and take care of your yard. I mean, you check in your hand, but that's the reality. It's cheaper to hire a crew to come and do the things that you used to do. I remember when I was in college, at Lee University, I used to change the oil on my car right there at Lee University in the parking lot. I mean, how many of you have changed the oil of your car? None. You don't even know how. It's cheaper just to go to a dry place and pay the $19, right? And have somebody else change your oil in your car. So that's what it is. It's just simply, we let other people do it because it's just easier and cheaper to do it, okay? Again, we already did this exercise about what your parents used to do, and look at the differences between what your parents used to do and what we are doing today. Most of our jobs now are educators. I mean, for example, my wife is right here, customer service. She's involved in logistics, and she's able to do all that out of the computer of the house, right? She don't have to be at a specific place to do it, okay? So then the transformation in the United States has been from a service economy, or this transformation reflects our increase in income. In poor nations, people cannot afford to pay someone to come and paint their house. So poor people paint their own houses. In poor nations, people fix their own cars. In poor nations, people fix their own refrigerators. They learn how to do that. I mean, for example, when I was a little kid, I'm an old man, you know, I'm in my 60 now, you know, but 50 years ago, you know, when I was living in Mexico, you know, I was the age of 10. I mean, my parents were never going to pay somebody to come and learn to fix something. I mean, you learn how to fix it. And now that I'm an adult, I thank God for that, that was able to learn something to do things with my hand because economic necessity. But some of you, for example, you have no idea about how to use some tools, you know, to fix something. But you are very good at computers. You're very good at technology. So again, that's our change in our economy. So then how do we produce things in the United States? Well, we produce things in the United States depending on the amount of inputs that we have. Right? There are two types of major inputs, capital inputs and labor inputs. Right? So human capital is the knowledge, the skills, how educated your labor force is. So in the United States, the labor force is highly educated. We have a high percentage of our workers that they actually college educated. Probably they don't have a terminal degree, but they have gone to college. They have an associate degree, or they have some type of training. In addition to that, we also have a lot of capital, a lot of tools, a lot of equipment. So by using highly educated workers and an abundance of capital, then that's why we have become so productive. Okay. So the United States invests a lot in human capital. Now, what is human capital? Investing in humans, in the knowledge. Just to give you an idea, in the United States, we spend $7,000 per year per child to go to public education. Every single child going to public education in the United States spend about $7,000 that they pay to educate them. When we go to college, some of you are getting Pell Grants. You know, we spend billions of dollars in trying to educate individuals. We subsidize universities. It is possible that you can go to a public university now and don't have to pay a single cent of tuition, right? So as you can see, then we are trying to continue investing in human capital. In addition to that, the United States have been able to accumulate massive amount of physical capital. And again, this is machinery, you know. So then as a result of this, then most of our production is highly intensive production, highly capital intensive production. In other words, most of what we make is through machines. Farmers, they don't have workers on the fields. You know, farmers have a very expensive tractor that they use to plant their fields. Very expensive, you know, machines to be able to raise or lift the crops out of the ground. Think about important nations that they plant potatoes. I don't know, you know, these potatoes are roots of a small plant. And in poor countries, you know, people actually have to go with their hands and try to pull the tree out of the ground to get out the potatoes. In the United States, we don't do that. We use a big tractor that actually goes out and shift all the ground up and down, and they are able to extract these potatoes without having any human involvement, right? So all this is a result of us being a rich nation. So again, you can either be capital intensive or labor intensive. Nations like India are very labor intensive because they have a lot of labor. Mexico, labor intensive. Germany, United States, France, Canada, very capital intensive, okay? Because it's cheap in relation to individuals. In other words, it is cheaper to buy a machine than to hire an individual. In other countries, you know, capital is non-existent, so then it is cheaper just to hire a lot of workers to make the same product, okay? In addition to this, we have a lot of technological advancements. In other words, we have a lot of technology being implemented in the United States, computer use. Another factor that has helped us to become so productive is the idea of factor mobility, which simply means that you can move from one place to the other. You can move an industry. Has any of you have been following the controversy between Tesla and the state of California? Okay, the state of California has not opened companies to operate. And what's the name of the founder of Tesla, the owner? Anybody?
Elon Musk.
Yeah, Musk. The day before yesterday, he threatened the state of California, and they say, if you don't allow us to reopen our manufacturing plants, we're going to move the plant to another state. Right? So again, that's what factor mobility is, that you can go to other places to be able to do what you want to do. In other countries, that do not exist. Companies are not free to move, and workers are not free to move. Okay? Something else is that we have a lot of outsourcing. In other words, if we can find a place that can do it better for us, we're going to go and make that part in that country. Okay. So again, we try to take advantage of everything. Now, in addition to this, United States workers are very good at the things that they do. So outsourcing is actually flow both ways. In other words, we have a lot of American companies that go to other countries and produce the things that they can do better. But for the first time in our history, and remember this for your knowledge and also for the exam, for the first time in our history, the amount of insourcing into the United States is actually larger than the amount of outsourcing, which simply means that we have more foreign companies. We have more foreign companies coming to the United States to take advantage of the productivity of American workers than American workers moving to other countries. I mean, just to give you an idea, Cleveland is a small little town in the middle of nowhere. And within 30 miles of Cleveland, we have all these foreign companies. We have Volkswagen here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. You know, we have Denso Corporation, a Japanese company that makes auto parts here in Athens, Tennessee. You know, we have the solar panel company Volker here in Charleston, Tennessee, in Cleveland, that produce solar panels, right? I mean, we have so many companies. We have Nissan in Smyrna, Tennessee. We have Mercedes-Benz in Birmingham, Alabama. We have BMW right here about 3 hours in South Carolina. We have Kenwood, another company that makes 18-wheelers, also in North Carolina from a foreign country. We have BMW. I mean, all these companies are moving to the United States because this is where the market is located. In addition to that, American workers are very cheap. They are very cheap, very inexpensive. Just to give you an idea, Volkswagen moved to Chattanooga for a lot of reasons. But one of the reasons they moved to Chattanooga was because the labor, the workers are very productive and very inexpensive. The average salary of a Volkswagen employee in the Chattanooga plant, in the assembly line, is about $15 an hour. That's how much we pay with wages and benefits, $15 an hour. The average salary of a German auto worker is $60 an hour. So think about a German company. They can stay in Germany and pay their workers $60 an hour. Or they can come to the United States and hire, you know, rednecks, you know, for $15 an hour. So even if they are not as good as German workers, 4 of them definitely will be able to produce more than one German guy. But it's totally the opposite. American workers are very productive. They're more productive than German guys. Why is that? Well, because of our labor laws. For example, what is the obligation of a company towards you, an employee, in the amount of vacation the company has to give you a year? What is the average amount of vacation American workers get? Paid vacations. Anybody has an idea? Let me give you a reality, guys. Once you start working, a company is going to hire you and they're going to give you 2 weeks paid vacations. That's it. Maybe 2 weeks. Yeah. And in some case, my wife is talking to me because she's in that industry. She can tell me, what was the, oh, according to my wife, said that most manufacturing companies, you have to work for 1 year before you become eligible for the 2 weeks vacation. And again, all depends. But American companies don't have to give you vacations if they don't want to. Outside the United States, like in Germany, German companies have to give their workers 4 weeks paid vacation. 4 weeks paid vacation is mandatory by law. So as you can see, then it's cheaper just to go to other places which you can hire workers and you don't have to pay them for doing nothing. So again, insourcing has been the trend. Okay. So now, in addition to that, in the United States, the government is involved, but the government is not there to try to slow down. It's actually there to try to help companies to be able to achieve their objectives. So what is the roles of the government in an economy? What is the government supposed to do? Well, they're supposed to provide legal framework and they're supposed to protect the environment. Now, that's what the government does. But in some countries, the role of the government is more than that. Another role of the government in other countries is control of companies. And once you put control of companies by government, then these nations are not going to be productive. Okay? So this is the role of the government. In addition to that, then the government is supposed to protect consumers and also protect labor. Okay? So again, we create laws to try to help our citizens. Okay, so again, this is the role of the government, to protect the environment, to protect consumers, to protect the labor force, and to enforce contracts. So the idea is, remember, in a market economy, we believe in laissez-faire. And laissez-faire means what? What does laissez-faire means?
Non-intervention by the government.
Non-intervention, right? The idea is to go ahead and let the economy do the best without us trying to tell them what to do. Okay. So then the next question is, for who do we make things in the United States? Who buys? Well, as you can see, in the United States, we make things for those people that can afford them. But in most cases, not in most cases, but in some cases, the government is also involved in providing things for individuals that they cannot afford it. And the reason is because in the United States, we have a problem. And the problem that we have in the US economy is the problem of the income distribution. The problem of income distribution, which simply means some people make very high incomes and some people make almost no income. And as a result of this, they don't have the ability to buy goods and services, right? Just to give you an idea about the disequality of income distribution, let me show you this graph. Okay, just to give you an idea. If we divide the populations into 20 percentiles, in other words, lowest fifth, second fifth, and so on. Hold on, for some reason my computer just moved me. Okay, let me come back and okay, now it's running. Okay, so this is, I'm waiting for you to appear in your screen. Okay, has it appear on your screen? Do you see a little pie chart there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. Okay, look at this. Oh, come on, bro. Hold on for a second.
I don't know if I'm the only person. I can't see your screen right now.
Yes, it's freezing right here. Let me try it again. And I'm not going to touch it. Okay. I just put on the screen a pie chart. Are you seeing that? Thumbs up?
I don't see it, but maybe it will just take a minute to load. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what is happening to I have two monitors. I have the computer that I'm teaching. I have another computer to get an idea about what you're looking, and it's doing the same thing. Sometimes it goes back and forth, but now you're supposed to have a pie chart in front of you. Well, if you don't have it, just listen to the lecture. It's not gonna take long now. Okay, you got it? Perfect. Okay, look at this. The lowest 20% of the US population, they make an average income of $12,000. So then 20% of the US population, the whole United States, they make less than $12,000 a year or less than $1,000 a month. Now let's go add the next 20%. Let's add the next 20%, the fifth. These are the people that make between 21,000 and 40,000. Now, on this case, they make an average of 31,000. So we put them together. Look at this. The lowest 40% of the US population, 40% of the US population, they earn a combined income of 11.6% of all the income generated in the US economy, which simply means that 40% of the economy of all workers only earn 11% of the income. Now we can add the next 20 percentile, right? So it simply means that 60% of all workers in the United States, 60% of all workers in the United States, they make an average income of less than $52,000. An average income of less than $52,000. So we add the income they make together. That's 14 plus 8 is 22 plus 3 is 25. 60% of the population make less than 25% of the income. When I look at the top highest quintile, 20% of the population make an average income of $185,000 a year. So in other words, only 20% of the population make more than 185,000, and they have a combined income of 51%. Are you with me? Can you all hear me? Guys, can you all hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, so as you can see, the problem in the United States is the issue of the distribution of income is not very fair for some people. There's a lot of income disparity. There's a lot of income disparity, which simply means we have a lot of poor people, right? So as a result of this, then what are we supposed to do? You know, and that's the thing that we're going to learn in the next chapter about how do we deal with poverty. You know, what do we deal with these people that they don't employ, you know, right? And that's the thing that we're going to learn. So then the US economy is all of us. We know what we produce. We produce the things that they are profitable. You know, we're trying to satisfy for wants. We produce for those people that can pay for these products, right? Our economy at this point is mostly a service-oriented economy, and compared to other nations, we are doing incredibly good. Just to give you an idea, more or close to half of the world population, live with less than $2 a day. 25% of the world population, they don't even know how to read and write. 20% of the world population, they actually chronically undernourished. So as you can see, you know, compared to other nations, we are incredibly rich. Well, we are richer than any nation in the world. And that has happened as a result of the productivity of the workers, you know, the way we see work, and so on. Okay? Okay, guys, so we have finished the class. Let me